Hello, my nomies. This week's car review is the 2015 Mitsubishi Lancer GT. I've been driving it for a week, and with any luck, I'll be able to do more of these kinds of reviews in the future. I have to attenuate your excitement, though. I am not a car guy. I know it goes and works and has things in it, but if you're looking for a full-on, in-depth car review, I am not the person you want to be listening to. I've only been using this for a week. I've driven a lot of cars in the past, but I don't know if I've ever driven a Mitsubishi. If I had, it'd probably be just as brief of a time. So what I did was I took notes as I had different experiences throughout the week, starting with my initial impressions before I even tried to drive the car, then my first drive impressions, and some ongoing impressions as well. I'm also going to leave you with who is this for and who is this not for. With any luck, this is going to work well. In looking at the dashboard initially, I was taken aback with the analog gauges and dials. It seemed like a pretty big step backwards from the car that I was used to driving, a hybrid. But I couldn't necessarily take that away from this particular car because it's really kind of in a different class of vehicles, and I understood that. So I took that all in context. Still, it was a little jarring to go from full-on digital to digital mixed with analog, and I'm not really sure I'm a fan of analog anything anymore. It seemed to be, from looks, initial looks before using it, pretty basic. And then, of course, as I started to use it more and more and driving it more and more, it seemed to be like basic plus. It's not truly basic, bare bones. There are some nice additions in this car, certain features that I think I would have appreciated if this became my car, either to own, to lease, or certainly use longer than a week. The car seat that you may have seen in the back, or maybe you do, maybe you don't. I've got a car seat with a child that is now about 6 months old. She didn't actually get a chance to ride in this car over the course of the week, but installing this car seat was easy. It had the pins underneath the seat, which is, I guess, a standard of sorts. I've never really tried installing a car seat beyond the car that I was using previously. Ta-da! I love the color red. I had to write that down because it's a red vehicle. Now, I don't know if that really weighs into the review, and I assume that there are many colors available, but I just thought it was kind of nice. I haven't driven a red car since my college days, and that was a nasty car. I don't want to get into that right now. This is a good car, though. That's a TLDR version of my review. It's been a good car to drive for the past week. It seems more compact than what I've been used to, but that's not necessarily a bad thing if you're looking for a super compact car. From the outside, it looked average, but I got in, and I was really taken aback at how much smaller it was than the car that I was accustomed to, a Prius V. The trunk was surprisingly roomy. There was a lot of space back there, which surprised me, but of course, that came, I think, at a cost because the room in the back seats isn't much room. The leg room is virtually non-existent, which would be okay if you don't really plan on traveling with a lot of passengers frequently. Not okay if you're traveling with people who have legs that reach over the seat, which I don't have the problem with right now because, of course, as I said before, my daughter is currently 6 months old. It didn't seem to be techie or geeky at all, which admittedly, this is where I really want to have a lot of technology at my fingertips. That's something that it's very difficult to hold against on this car, or certainly in the review, but it's kind of like after you get used to an SSD, a super fast disk or drive in your computer, moving back to a hard drive is possible, but it's very difficult to do. So I found certain bits and pieces, little tech niceties throughout the vehicle, but it was not replete with tech, just FYI. Sound system seemed ample. I'm not an audiophile at all. It was loud when it needed to be. I was able to connect my phone lickety split using the Bluetooth connectivity. That wasn't an issue at all. The next car I want to try is that one. Is that an SUV? Like I said, I don't know a lot about cars. On first drive, I noticed it had good acceleration. That would mean I barely touched the pedal and it went, which was a dramatic improvement over the Prius, which is a completely different vehicle for economy. I didn't have a chance to fill up this vehicle. I drove it, I'd say about 100 miles or so, because I went up and down. If you want to see more of the vehicle, I did a couple of show and tell reviews in this seat here in the car, and I also used it throughout the vlogs that I recorded over the past week, so it's kind of like a bonus. I even showed off a couple of the features that I'll be talking about. So if you want even more of this car, I guess you have to watch our regular Pirillo vlogs. Good visibility all around. Yeah, every car has blind spots, but I found it easier to navigate, certainly in comparison to my previous vehicle. Really, really, really clear visibility, which is a big deal for me. I always check my blind spots. Good visibility is a big deal for safety, and I guess the vehicle, you've probably done your research. Safety-wise, it's spec'd out. I'm a safe driver, as safe as I possibly can be, but I guess it's rated well for safety. I don't know if I'd really want to review that personally, but that's me, because I don't want to get into any accidents. The backup camera was a bonus. That's something that I had been accustomed to as well. It surprised me. I didn't know this had a backup camera, but that's one of those features that once you have it in a vehicle, it's difficult to live without, so I liked that a lot. Another tech addition that plays very well into safety and overall drivability for me. The doors were kind of difficult to shut. They seem to be a bit heavier, and that could be in relation to the hinges. It took a little bit of elbow grease sometimes to get the door shut all around, not just the driver door. It was relatively easy to drive. I didn't run into any complexities, any problems whatsoever in driving the vehicle. I had, I guess, framed it in the experience of driving a rental car, and because it's only been a week in experiencing what this vehicle could offer a particular driver like myself. And I could possibly, in terms of its easiness to drive, I could drive it for longer than a week, but another TLDR version, I don't know if it would necessarily be the vehicle for me for a lot of the reasons that I'm explaining for its various shortcomings, largely in relation to tech. It's really for a different type of person, but I'll get to that further on. Driving didn't seem to be too loud. I'm sitting here and it's quiet outside, it's quiet inside. As I was driving at higher speeds, it was regular old noise. It didn't feel like, it was any louder than I had been accustomed to, or any quieter certainly, but it's not a luxury class vehicle. Great turn radius, which is something that I appreciate, especially when you're pulling into parking spots. One of the cooler features that I saw was the auto windshield wipers. And I wish I could demonstrate this for you today, but I did in the vlog. When the car senses rain and the windshield wipers are toggled to auto, they'll automatically start moving, which is pretty cool. You just got to remember to turn them off if you go through a car wash. But that was pretty neat. I'm like, that's a little nicety that I could probably live without, but still, it's one of those gee whiz things. It's like, I really like that. I like that a lot. There were no rear wipers, or I guess not a rear wiper. Wasn't a huge deal. The rain didn't bother me too much over the course of the week, and it usually does rain in Seattle, even though it's sunny here today. Oh yeah, and I didn't have a chance to use the butt warmers either. You may or may not be able to hear it, but the vehicle is actually running right now, if only so that I can have the air conditioning blowing on me. Otherwise, I would be sweating. I know I could probably remove my jacket, but hey, I figured it made me look cool in doing a car review, even though I'm not really a car review guy. The nav system, something that's very, very, very important to me. One of those things that once you have, you can't live without, which I should say before I get into the nav system, another piece of technology that I missed was the adaptive cruise control. That's not available in the vehicle. I had that in my old car, and it was awesome. Once you use something like that, it's impossible to use cruise control in any other vehicle if you can't adapt to the car ahead of you in conjunction to the speed that you happen to be going, or wherever you set the cruise control at. Didn't have that, really did miss it. Used the cruise control once or twice, but just found it to be kind of unusable. Once you use really good technology inside of cars, it is insanely difficult to take a step backwards. The nav system is another piece of tech that I think is a central part of tech. It was responsive. I wouldn't say insanely snappy, but certainly snappier than what I'd been used to. The user experience on the nav system is, sad to say, kind of standard, a little clunky, but then again, car nav systems are not known for being amazingly easy to use. Once you kind of work around its quirks, it was fine, it worked, it got me from point A to point B. I appreciated it. I like having it there. It was a nice screen, although if there was one ding, not on the screen, I didn't ding anything on the car, physically, I would say that even though it's got a matte screen on it, like an anti-reflective coating, it was still sometimes very, very difficult to see, especially in sunlight. That was something that I thought they could have done a better job on, even after I cranked up the brightness. That was something that I thought was a potential problem if you rely on the nav system a lot, for various controls, not just your audio, but certainly for navigating around. But I would say, as far as I'm concerned, better than most, not as great as I think car nav systems could be. And it's difficult because every one of them is different, and they don't always have usability in mind. What really kind of caught my eye on the nav system, I know this is like it's one of those stupid things, right? But I love stupid things in cars. I really do. This is where I geek out. When you're driving, it'll post the speed limit on the nav system. That's awesome. I've never had anything like that before. That was really cool. I mean, I generally go the speed limit, but having that there serves as a very nice reminder that you should be going the speed limit. This is also where it would have been nice to have parity between the digital readout of the speed limit on the nav system and a digital readout on the console. I understand different class of vehicle, but because your mind has to switch between you're reading 60 versus you got to, okay, there's the number 60 there too, but you got to get your dial certain, to go to hit the 60 mark. That makes sense. The more you have to think while you're driving, it's not that it makes for a worse driving experience, but part of having technology in a vehicle is just making it easier and safer, more convenient, and requiring you to think less. I'm the kind of person who doesn't really like driving a stick shift. I learned when I was younger, could still drive a stick shift. I don't want to drive a car. I am all for the self-driving vehicles. I'm all for the electric vehicles. I'm all for, packing these cars full of technology that makes it easier to drive, easier to keep you safe, easier to make it such that you can just do what you need to do. And you shouldn't have to worry about technology. Technology should just melt away. And that's one of those things that I think it's technology that kind of melts away. So there are certain little features of the car that I really, really liked. So who is this for? This is for someone who wants to step up from a very basic vehicle. They're looking for, just a little bit of nicety, but not necessarily wanting to step up and spend a ton of money on all the extra features. You're not looking for a luxury vehicle. This is not a luxury vehicle. You don't need a lot of legroom. Okay. So who is this not for? Someone who's used to a lot more tech inside their car, someone who wants a sportier car, someone who wants, I'm not slagging the design at all, but honestly, I'll admit it. I'll look at a car and I see it as a car, and rarely can identify the manufacturer because I don't see the cars that way. I mean, cars to me are like computers. In fact, I guess Elon Musk had said something similar to that a while ago. They are computers. And, I see them as tools. They're a means to an end. And this was designed very well, very, very well. I thought, in my mind, I'm like, well, it's a nice car design. I probably, after driving it, would be more inclined to suggest it for someone who's looking for a basic plus type of vehicle. That's where I would accommodate it in the grand scheme of vehicles. It is for someone who might have one or two people that they're traveling with, that doesn't need a lot of space, that doesn't mind a blend between the past and the future. Quite honestly, that's the best way to put it when you're mixing analog gauges and dials with futuristic types of technology like a nav system. And apparently, if you're looking for safety, there's also a moonroof or a sunroof. I swear to God, the goal of this video is not to prove just how little I know about cars. I care about driving, and I care about having good experiences. And I would say that for the most part, driving this vehicle was a good experience. I would have no problem if someone asked me certain qualifying questions in recommending this particular vehicle. That doesn't make me a fan of any one vehicle over another, other than saying I really didn't have an issue with the vehicle. I wouldn't necessarily use all the features in the vehicle that you might. Hey, I'm like most people. Like 99% of the galaxy just wants the car to be a car. You just want to drive it and you want to have a good experience. And I would say, at the end of the day, I'm not going to give a score. I very rarely do that, even with gadgets and gizmos or anything. Was it good? Yes. Would I have any issues in recommending it to the right person? I would have no reservations. But of course, like anything, it's not for everybody. I really appreciated the ability to drive this car for a week. It was a lot of fun. I'd like to do it again, if only to get more experience with cars, to kind of get to know what's out there. Because like most people, I don't get a chance to drive a lot of cars. And like most people, I know bits and pieces, about what makes a vehicle go. But hey, I'm not anything more than a driver. I know I keep saying that, but I just have to hammer that home because I like talking to average people. I like talking to people who want to know someone's experience. You can read a spec sheet anywhere. You probably already have. Spec sheets are not interesting, certainly in relation to doing these kinds of videos. Thank you for paying attention. I really do appreciate the support, but at this point, I'm going to leave you to your own devices. By the way, if you have any other vehicle recommendations for me, feel free to let me know. Just leave a comment.